Happy Anzac Day, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your day off, and I wanted to make sure that you didn't miss out on the classes, and so I'm going to make this video for you. And for those of you who were in the class yesterday, you can watch this video as a replay in case you want to watch it again. We had so much fun yesterday. It was great. Okay, so we are looking at trends. This is fashion trends. That's not what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about business trends, sales, business, different things like this. Okay, who's excited? So we're going to start out by watching a video, and I need to figure out how I can move to the video nice and quickly. That's not how I do it. Let's see if I can. I have to do it this way. Okay, let's start with the first video.
Many companies in the automotive industry have launched initiatives to significantly.
So just very quickly, as we're watching this, remember that your assessment is on the automotive industry. So pay close attention to any references to the auto industry.
Significantly accelerate their development of electric cars. So one of the big challenges in electric mobility, which will emerge over the next months and years, is the end of life of the battery. And one of the ways of solving that issue is to, for example, burn the residuals that come from these batteries at temperatures of more than 2000 centigrade, but it requires significant investments. And so what is happening right now? Well, they get dumped somewhere.
Hay que prestarle atención a la geopolítica del litio y del cobalto. 9 de las tecnologías triunfadoras en ese almacenamiento denso y competitivo de electricidad utilizan litio y 7 de las 9 utilizan cobalto. El factor más inquietante en este momento tiene que ver con el cobalto. Algo más del 50% de la producción y de sus reservas se encuentra en un país como Zaire. Argentina, Chile y Bolivia concentran el 60% de las reservas de litio del mundo. El riesgo de cartelización de la oferta de litio y cobalto no hay que descartarla.
People will start sharing their information on health outcomes. We will start talking about what really matters for healthcare. Instead of talking about public-private partnerships, should it be public or private? Let's talk about the health of the population. Is this a good movement for the health of the population, yes or not? Learning what works and why does it work. All the stakeholders in the system need to agree first on what outcome we want to measure. Second, on how we want to measure it, how to share it, and then which type of information is going to be acceptable by all of us.
We are witnessing a trend characterized by the consumer asking for healthier, organic products. In the US, we are starting to see companies providing ratings of the quality of food. The products rated sometimes increase their demand by 3 times. All the value chain is affected by this, but essentially because the consumer is asking for this.
And I think there will be 2 main trends. First is the need to recover profitability, which is very low or even negative for some banks. And second, in that context, how to face the increasing competition coming from Google or Facebook, who are very capable of offering in a massive way financial services.
Okay, that was the first video. Let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so there are 4, actually we need to change the view of this one. There's like a lot of changing here. Okay, so there's 4 different types of trends that we will find. And they're going to be cyclic, going to be seasonal, irregular, and linear. Let's have a look at those. But before we do that, we need to talk about time series data, which ended up on the slide before, which wasn't supposed to be there, but that's okay. So this here is time series data, and time series data is equally spaced time intervals and a well-defined set of data. So here we have quarterly and sales, and we're talking about the same things every single time, and every time we're talking about quarters. We're not talking about 1 quarter and 1 week and then a month and then another quarter. We're talking about everything the same. Okay, so cyclic. So this is a cyclic trend. It goes up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, and it might grow. So it's, you can see that this one's actually moving up. And then this is a seasonal trend. And so you're probably sitting there and wondering, what is the difference? They look very, very similar. So a cyclical variation is one that only really goes up and down, and there's not that much difference. So if we go back and we have a look at this one here, you'll see that it goes up and down, and there's a bit of a V shape in the middle of that first little circle, and there's a V shape at the bottom of the first one. And the second one doesn't really have a very deep V shape, and the third one has 2 little V shapes. So it's not really the same every single time. You could almost say that it's seasonal, but it's more cyclical in that sense. Okay, so this one, you can see that every single time there's 2 steps up and then the big one, and then 2 steps up and the big one, 2 steps up and the big one. So this is more seasonal. Okay, perfect. This is an irregular trend, so it is going absolutely everywhere. We've got some movement up, some movement down, up, down, big jump down, moving across a little bit, down again, then it's going up. It's going absolutely everywhere, completely irregular. And last but not least, this one is linear. So it's still bouncing up and down, but it is following that green line up in a certain way. So that green line there is actually the trend line of that graph. Okay, how about this graph here? So it looks like houses cost almost nothing, probably in about the second quarter of 1975, because this is actually a misleading graph. So the scale doesn't start at 0, makes house prices in 2006 look 7 times higher than in 1975. But if you account for inflation, which they haven't, the 2006 numbers shouldn't be that high when we account for inflation. So these are important things that you need to keep in mind. If you're going to be working somewhere, if you're going to start your own business, you need to make sure that you have accurate information. And a lot of companies will actually produce graphs based on data that is not 100% correct. So if you can understand how graphs can be misleading and where things can go wrong, then you're going to be able to do a better job and hopefully get an increase in salary or be able to get more customers. And that is really, really cool. How about this one? Does this look like a good graph to you? Does this look like it's a good trend in that sense? So again, this one is misleading. So in order to be able to understand trends, understand what's happening, you need to know whether the information actually correct to start off with. So 10 plus 85 plus 50 is 145 million, which is definitely not half. Which means that 265 million is also not half. So they're making it look like the city is paying for half, but the city is actually paying for more than the half. Okay, time to watch another video, and we're going to get up and stretch. If you're watching this at home, you can get up and stretch as well. Let's watch this video. So this is also a bit of a fun video, but there's also a life lesson in there, so it's also an important lesson. There we go. This is a bit of an intelligence test. Okay, does anybody have an answer? fun, so you can stretch, and so we don't spend too much time on serious things in the class all the time. Okay, it is actually true though that a lot of managers are not able to answer those questions, whereas children are. So just a little bit of fun there. Okay, let's go back to our actually, we're going to watch another video, so we don't have to skip around and do all of that. Here we go. Time for some more interesting things.
What is the 80-20 rule in business? The business management consultant Joseph Giron made the assertion in 1941 that 80% of effects come from 20% of the causes. Giron
Okay, so I just want to quickly let you know that Wilfredo Pareto invented this, or he didn't actually invent it. He found somebody else who was already studying this, and he did some more research into it. Here's an example of what he did, and I'll tell you some more in just a moment.
dubbed the principle Pareto's principle after the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, who observed that 80% of the land in Italy was owned by 20% of the population. While the Pareto principle has seen a few decades pass since its inception, the theory behind the principle is timeless.
So, for example, he noticed that 80% of the land was owned by 20% of the people. And he also noticed that 80% of the peas that were growing in his backyard came from only 20% of the plants. He noticed that 80% of the stocks on the stock market were owned by 20% of the population, and that 80% of the profits inside those stock portfolios came from 20% of the stocks in that portfolio.
Some business examples of the Pareto principle are 80% of your profits come from 20% of your key customers. 80% of your sales come from 20% of your key products or services. 80% of your successful campaigns will come from only 20% of your advertising. 20% of your sales force will produce 80% of your sales, etc. But the big question is, do business people really focus on the 20% customers? You see, not all customers are created equal. 20% customers generate almost 80% of your revenue. Let's call the 20% as your ideal customers. Let us consider the 80-20 rule in your customer ratio to understand how this can help your business. Almost all business people know who their customers are, but very few pay attention to who their ideal customer is. In every business, there are ideal customers who are the backbone of business. It is easy to find out who your ideal customer is. Your ideal customer is someone who is very happy with your products and services. He or she not only religiously and repeatedly use your products, but also bring in more customers to you. Ideal customers are excited about your new offerings. They are the ones who will grab your products the very moment they are launched. They are your raving fans. Every successful business has ideal customers or raving fans. They keep coming back to you for more. If you look into your total business revenue, you can find the 20% group known as the key accounts. It is not the customers you lack in business. What you lack is the number of ideal customers who belong to the 20% group, which is responsible for your 80% profits. Imagine if you can increase your ideal customers to 100%, then your business will grow almost 4 times. Many customers who are in the bracket of 80% can be converted into your ideal customer base, or you could extend your marketing to reach out to more new ideal customers. If you're selling products and services, identify the 20% of your customer base that is bringing in 80% of your profits and strengthen your relationships with them and enhance the products and services they are investing the most. Try to make sense of your ideal customers. Find out the commonality that binds the ideal customer base and reach out to more ideal customers, and you will see your business grow. Similarly, if you can use this rule, it will help you to have clarity on other areas like managing people or team, customer service, sales, business development, etc. If you have any additional suggestions or tools, please feel free to share in comments or write to us. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe.
Okay, so put your thumbs up right now if you like that video, and I will put a thumbs up. Actually, we'll do that right now. I think most of you are going to like that one, so we'll put a thumbs up. Add that to 45 total. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. So we watched that one. Time to have a look at this one. Okay, so this is, and I need to go back to the different view because you can't see the full page right now. So I'll go back to presenter view. Okay, so this is an example of lifetime value, another thing that you need to know for today's class. So this is an example from the presentation in the Moodle. AAC Retail Shop has had 4,367 customers. It's made 15,890 sales at an average of $63 each. So total number of sales divided by the total number of customers will give us our contribution, which is a 3.64 in this case. And then when we multiply that by the average sales price, it will give us a lifetime value of $229.32. Now, lifetime value of a customer is only a forecast because we don't know a number of different things. We don't know if this trend will continue, if something technological or something else will happen, and we'll talk about those different things later on. But we need to know lots of different things. However, I tend to find that there is an even better way of doing this, and I'm going to share that with you. This is a larger calculation. So customer lifetime value is the average monthly transactions multiplied by the average order value. So far, so good. So far the same. But we're going to multiply it by the average customer lifespan and multiplied by the average gross margin. So we're actually going to take out the costs associated so that we only get the profits that our clients are giving us. And that will give us our gross margin contribution. And we're going to multiply that by which is retention rate, how many of those customers we actually managed to keep, divided by 1 plus the discount we give them on average, and the minus the retention rate as well. Don't worry about this too much because this is my calculation and it's going to be a little bit more complicated. So in this case, and so don't need this for the assessment, you can just use the simple version, but if you want to and you want to get some bonus marks perhaps, you might want to see if you can use this one here. So again, same question, but this time 4,367 customers on average, 15,890 sales on average, at an average of $63 each, so everything else still the same, but this time we've got a margin of 30%. Customers generally shop with the company for 2 years, and they retain 80% of the initial customers and discount about 20% on average per month. So to do the calculation, we're going to take the 15,890 multiplied by 63 multiplied by 0.3 multiplied by 24. So 24 is the 2 years, 2 12s are 24. And it'll give us 7,207,704. Now we're going to then take that number and multiply it by 0.8, which is 80% retention. We're going to divide it by 1 plus our 0.2 discount minus our 0.8, what was that, retention. Okay, it gives us 14 million, almost 14.5 million. Now we're going to correct that per customer, so we need to divide it by the number of average customers, or a number of sales actually, not customers. So correction per sale, which will give us 907.2. Okay. So actually, that should probably be divided by 4,367, which actually increases the value even more. So I just noticed that myself. Okay. So that means that 907.2 is much higher than the 209 that we had previously. And what I would like to point out with you is that you may see 200 as not a very high amount. So if you go to $63 average, then the lifetime value of the customer instead of 209, 907. So we're going to be more careful about making sure that we don't lose our customers. So that can be really, really good. Okay, so two ways of calculating that one. Now, trends and developments that are going to affect business. So we've got technology changes, change in supplier prices, demographic, ecological and environmental, economic, political, government, industry trends, penetration of new technologies, social and cultural factors. So each of those individually. Changes in technology could be affect customer buying behavior. Technological advanced products may reduce the need for customers to buy other products. So for example, Apple doesn't produce the standard iPods anymore because everybody can buy iPhones. So there's no need for them to produce and nobody is buying them. So if you wanted to buy one, you can practically not buy them anymore. There are also political things that will affect your industry trends. So elections, war, taxation, establishment or expansion costs, details of any permits, bylaws and levies that may apply. There are economic trends that you might want to put into your assessment as well. So how much is the average household income? Is that going up? Is it going down? How is that affecting your market? How will that affect you being able to sell your automotive product? Unemployment data, gross national product, is that going up or down? Inflation, is that increasing or decreasing? What will that do for your ability to be able to sell your product? Will you need to increase the prices? Will you be able to still produce it at the same cost and still be able to sell it at the same price? Do your customers expect you to still be able to sell it at the same price? Interest rates, what's happening with those? What's happening with the business cycle? So these are all things that you can put into your assessment. So really, really important. Social or cultural factors. Language. Are you going to be selling in other countries? What is the main language spoken in your target market? If you're in America and you have got a product that is targeted at Mexican Americans, are you going to do a Spanish advertisement for them as well? Customs, getting the product into the country. Are there any issues with customs, culture, social factors? So these are all things to take into consideration. Global awareness of issues related to sustainability, global warming, overuse of raw materials. So you saw an example of that in the first video where they were talking about cobalt and lithium for the batteries that they use in electric cars. People obviously buying more electric cars. So is yours going to be, your product going to be an electric car? Is it going to be a petrol car? Is it going to be a diesel car? What are you going to be doing? So these are also things that you need to take into consideration for your assessment. Industry trends. So patterns or trends with regards to price, cost, consumer purchasing. Is it elastic or inelastic demand? Inelastic or elastic supply? Marketing, manufacturing, sales methodology. What are the trends? Okay, and we had some fun with the video before, and I want to ask you a question. Ship has 26 sheep and 45 goats. How old is the ship's captain? Let me give you a few seconds to think about the answer. You can pause the video if you like. And if you don't want to know the answer yet and you want to figure it out first, because there is an answer. I'm going to give you 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, I'm assuming that you either already have an answer now or that you have paused and only just restarted playing the video. So the interesting thing with this question is that they used it to test school students to see how they'd react, and school students would come up with all sorts of really strange answers. So they would add 45 to 26, or they'd subtract 26 from 45, or some even subtracted 45 from 26, coming up with a negative age for the captain. That is just crazy. So what this question is teaching us is that sometimes we don't have enough information and we think that we know what we're doing. So what I want to suggest to you is, if you are struggling with your assessment, if you are not sure of something, don't make up an answer. Come and ask me, come and ask one of the other trainers. Make sure that you are taking responsibility for yourself. So yesterday in the class, we had a couple of questions with regards to the material. We went in very, very deeply and had some very interesting class discussions. The interesting thing and the important thing to realize is that if you are struggling, you need to ask for help, because you can either be below the line. So we drew a line, and underneath the line I wrote down victim. So you can either be below the line and be a victim and say that life is treating you badly and there's nothing you can do, and that's the reason why you didn't get a good mark in your assessment. Or you can be above the line, and above the line I wrote down responsibility. You can take responsibility for your actions. You can take responsibility for your assessment. You can make sure that you're in a group with somebody so that you can at least hand in your assessment. So do you play the victim, and are you going to say that life is not allowing you to do things, or are you going to take responsibility and move forward with everything and find a way to make things happen? So in life, we need to find ways to make things happen. And so that's what I wanted to share with you with this question. Think about that. Let me know if you're having any issues with the assessment, because I want everybody to pass. Remember that there are only 4 more weeks before you need to hand in your assessment. So keep that in mind. I made a list with groups, and we need to change that. I need everybody to probably come up with their own groups. Send me an email, let me know which groups you're in, so that I at least know who's going to be handing in an assessment. But I'm going to leave the responsibility of that to you. I wanted to help out. Turns out that doesn't help very much. So I'm going to let you look for your own groups, and then just let me know. Okay, so I want to make sure that everybody hands in on time, because remember that $50 fine for not handing in your assessments on time. And we're going to finish up with one more video, and this is car trends. Again, a very, very important video to help you with your assessment. So please pay attention to this, and we'll watch the last video, and this is the end of today's class. Let me know if you have any questions or anything, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week once the public holiday is over. Enjoy the last video.
Tesla hitting another speed bump yesterday, announcing a voluntary recall of 123,000 Model 8 cars. The automaker says it's concerned that corroding bolts in cold temperatures could lead to power steering failures.